In this 3D reality, it's inevitable that opposites exist. Light, the existence of light, inevitably casts a shadow. The existence of the whole, the definition of the whole, brings about its quote unquote shadow, which is the fragment. Right? In fact, the whole is defined by the contrast of the fragment. We come to recognize something via its opposite. It's kind of like, how will we know of light if not for darkness? Right? So darkness actually help define light or help us recognize, help us come into recognition of light. And so you can say that it served the purpose. The quote unquote, the negative side of the coin serves its purpose. Another role of the, you can say, the dark side or the shadow side is that it allowed for the exploration of empowerment, of choice, of self decision. So imagine a whole pie and there's no knife. So you only have the whole pie. There's no choice but the whole pie. There's no other choice. You cannot, you can say, develop self-decision and the empowerment of choice because there's no other thing but the whole pie, right? Even though the whole pie is goodness, right? It's where goodness lies, is where true nature qualities lie, and there's no choice but that. But in that scenario, then we don't develop a backbone, let's say. We don't develop a kind of self-autonomy, self-decision. As opposed to when there's the added selection of the slice of pie, now we have a choice. The slice of pie or the whole pie. Especially that the slice of pie represents the ego mind, right? So the ego mind is enticing, it's entrancing, it's luring, right? It's where urges and impulses lie. So it offers, you can say, a challenge. It offers a temptation. It's like now that there's this temptation, now that there is this very compelling distraction, what will you choose? Right? And so we develop the capacity to choose the whole despite, despite the sales talking fragment, despite the noisy, convincing fragment, right? So there's now the allowance or enabling of the development of that capacity because of the existence of the slice of pie, because of the existence of the fragment, which again offered option, thus then enabling the capacity of choice, empowerment. And we can see this around us, when a child is always catered to by their parents, always served by the parents, always enabled, always cuddled. The parents always give them what they want and not allow him to face challenges and always just, always just cater to him and infantilize him. And so that's the environment that the child grew up in, right? Everyone is just worshiping him or catering to him and not ever being told no. And so you can say that externally speaking, everything is good. Everything is in positive to him, to the child. And so, as we know, when that is the case, the child grows up to be a narcissistic, immature, entitled psycho, because they didn't develop the capacity. They didn't develop the capacity for self-decision. Everything is all good to them when they are growing up. There's no adversity. The external is always catering to him. And so that's what happens. That person didn't develop a backbone, They remain a toddler in an adult body, always expecting the external world to cater to them and satisfy their every demand, appease or yield to their every tantrum. They remain as a dependent infant, right? So that is what is gonna happen if there's no choice but the whole pie. We will remain as this dependent infant. We don't develop a kind of autonomy, a kind of empowerment. Now, the problem lies when we are myopically identified with the fragment, right? It's kind of like being identified with the shadow and at the neglect of the actual thing, of the actual substantial whole. So, for example, there's a tree, and of course, the tree casts a shadow. Now, if we are myopically identified with a shadow, then that will be the experience. We will be in the notness. That's how the ego is, right? It comes from a place of notness, not whole, not complete, not valid, not worthy, not enough, not correct, whatever, whatever notness, right? Because that is its purpose. And so if our regard or our seeing is not aligned with reality, meaning we identify or we are myopified with the shadow aspect, only that's when suffering happens. And you can say that the suffering is a signal, that it's a mechanical signal that we are not aligned with reality. It's more mechanical than personal because our regard for the shadow is a misalignment. It's not meant to be our sole identity. It's not meant to be the authority. It's not meant to be our whole self. And so suffering ensues. It points to, or it gives us the signal that it's not meant to be this way, that you're regarding the shadow in a mistaken way, you can say. The shadow or the fragment is not meant to be the authority. And that's the thing. If we desire true democracy in the external world, then we have to exercise that over here. We have to first exercise that true democracy here. The external is a reflection of the internal. And as you can see in the external world, it is the quote unquote, the 1% ruling over the rest of humanity. It is you can say, the fragment ruling over the whole. The fragment or the shadow deciding for the whole. It is the one in authority. And since the external is a reflection of the internal, so we can presume or infer that the majority of humanity still gives authority to the 1% in them. The ego self is the one given authority in them. And so, since it's the 1% ruling over the individuals, that is the one that is given authority, well, then that will be reflected in the external world, wherein it's the 1%, the minority, right, ruling over the majority. So it wouldn't matter whoever you can say the next president is or the next people in power are, it'll be the same thing. True democracy will not be a thing unless or until the individuals, the humanity, the majority of humans practice or exercise democracy within themselves. Personal democracy or internal true democracy is when that erected ego self is not anymore given the authority. And so it, it humbles down, right? It steps back, it sits down and allow for the whole to be at the helm, right? Majority rule. And by the whole, I meant the whole, the whole body, the whole avatar, the whole system, not the disembodied mind ruling over the rest of the system, right? It's the whole avatar given the allowance, given the front seat, you can say, given the helm. It's, you can say, charging the whole pie instead of the slice of pie, right? It's respecting the whole, being in reverence to the whole avatar, to the whole system. And so you'll notice that you'll be more in this listening place. It is a wider field, and you're giving way. You're giving way to this, to the whole system, to the majority, It's practicing majority rule within yourself. And you'll notice a kind of correctness, a kind of settledness, a kind of peace, because you're allowing the all, the we, the majority to be mobilized, to be engaged. It feels right. It feels correct. It feels true democracy. It's equal, it's balanced. When something is unfair, something is lopsided, something is benefiting one more than the others, it doesn't feel good. There's a contorted feeling, or like being scammed, right? Being taken advantage of, being exploited. It's yucky, it's an icky feeling compared to when, let's say, the agreement or the transaction is fair, or the workload, let's say, is fair and balanced, and then you all work together, you all cooperate, then there's a nice feeling to it. There's a enriching feeling to it. So it's the same here. When you mobilize the whole, it feels right. It feels true. Equality feels good compared to when there's the myopic identification with the ego mind, and the ego mind is lording over the whole system, bullying it, right? Telling it, you should do this, you should do that. You are unworthy, you are undeserving, you are incomplete, you're not enough. You should do stuff to prove yourself. You should get external validation and approval, etc. Right? It doesn't feel good. It's like being under a tyranny, being under a dictator. Like, what is this about? But that happens when we give the fragment undue authority, when we are funneling currency or power to the 1%, the 1% in us, the ego mind. That's what happens. It's gonna lord over. It's gonna take on the undue burden, you can say, of lording over the rest of the system, the avatar, the body. It's a lopsided power system, which is again is reflected in our external world. And so we start here. We start true equality and democracy here by allowing the whole avatar, the whole system, the say, the voice. So it's coming more from a place of we, it's like a personal collective. It's like it's we instead of I. I'm the one. I'm the ego, So it's the I, you can say, quote unquote, dissolving into the we, and now having no identity, quote unquote, other than the position of the we, right? Imagine someone in a cult, right? They have no identity. Their identity is fully enmeshed with the cult. Whatever the cult believes, that's their belief. Whatever the cult is doing, that's what they do. That is their whole self. Whatever the cult's principles are, or whatever their set of, beliefs are, that's how they are, right? They, quote unquote, lost themselves in that cult. They've become a complete embodiment or voice of the cult. That's what happens when we give this power to others, to the external collective, you can say, to the external group or collective or mass. That's what happens. We lose ourselves. And as we know, that is not healthy, right? That's actually pretty dysfunctional. That is being infantilized and depending on the external for everything, for yourself, for your sense of self, for your sense of worth, etc. Now, imagine redirecting that selfness from an external crowd, from an external collective to here, to your true village, quote unquote, to your true collective. And so instead of the self getting lost in the cult, it's getting lost, quote unquote, dissolving here. So this is also what some teachings call ego dissolution or ego death or falling away of ego. It's basically that fragment finally joining in the whole, and speaking as the whole, letting the whole speak, letting the whole, quote unquote, rule, majority rule, instead of the 1% minority lording over, dictating over the whole. So again, it's respecting, being in reverence, valuing the majority, respecting majority rule, being on the side of reality, basically, and not giving the shadow undue credence, undue authority. Like if we take a look at the physical reality, like for example, the human body, the solid objects, we cast a shadow, right? The avatar casts a shadow. When the avatar goes from point A to point B, it's the shadow that follows the physical, substantial body, right? It's the shadow that follows. It's not the other way around. It's not that the physical, substantial avatar following the shadow, right? The shadow is meant to be a follower. You can say it's a definer, It's kind of like when you see a shadow, then you know that there's an object over there, right? Because there's a shadow casted. So you know that there's a solid object there. Right? So the shadow serves as a definer. It's not meant to be the myopic identity or the authority. Like in paintings or in art, especially with realism or 3D art, shadow plays a vital role in defining the image. Shadow defines the shape. When shadows are added, we can see that the painting comes alive. And so that's what shadow does. It helps define. It serves as a contrast. In this 3D reality, it completes the picture. You can say, again, with the painting or drawing analogy, shadow completes the painting, So you can say that shadow is just something to complete the collection. Again, with the slice of pie analogy, we have the whole pie and the slice of pie. So the slice of pie is something that completes the selection. You can have the whole pie and the slice of pie. Now, which experience do you choose? Right? Now you get to choose, you see. And so it's seeing the ego aspect that way. You can say it serves a purpose. It has a role. It's a utility thing. If we have a, you can say, quote unquote, correct seeing or regard to it, meaning the shadow is the shadow, the fragment is a fragment, and it serves a role, then we don't suffer it. But if we have a misperceived regard to it, like regarding it as our identity, as our whole self, as the authority, then that's when we are burnt, you know? That's when we suffer. It's a signal that, hey, no, I'm not your identity. Don't put all the burden on me, on the slice of pie. You are dumping all that burden, all that load to me, the slice of pie. What are you doing? And so we suffer. You can say that we kind of get punished for it. It's a signal to distribute, you know, to go with the majority instead of the minority. Instead of funneling all that currency or power or authority in the size of pie, it has to be distributed to the all, to the whole pie, to the we, you know. I want to give another perspective. So this might be a hot take. The ego is the agent of notness, right? It's coming from the place of notness. It's where all negativity lies. Again, not whole, not complete, not valid. Therefore, I have to go get it. I have to go achieve that. I have to go possess that. I have to go prove myself and prove my worth, etc. Right? You know. And so you can say that it's the repository of notness. It contains the notness, all the unpreferred stuff. So you can say that it's the scapegoat. You know, it serves as the repository. So you can say that the size of pie takes one for the team, quote unquote. It has taken on the role of notness. It has taken on the position of containing the notness. So therefore, you don't have to, because the slice of pie has taken that on. Again, has taken one for the team, has taken that quote unquote burden for the whole. And so you don't have to. That role or that position was already taken. That quote unquote burden is already filled. You know, that position is already taken. So you don't have to. Suffering happens or ensues if we join in the ego, because that's what the ego is doing. It's already containing the notness. And so if we join it, if we identify with it, then that will be the experience. It's kind of like a quarantine virus. And if we join in, let's say that quarantine container, then we also contract the virus. And so the choice is ours to join in the ego, the cult of the fragment, or join in the whole where goodness lies. It's like being an empty investor, you know, being emptiness, being this empty charging. And it's all about charging the fragment or the whole. So the characteristic of the fragment is that, right? That is its features, notness experience. Is that where you want to invest? You know, invest your energy or attention or currency into? Or the whole, where goodness lies? You know, where this kind of sense of, again, democracy or settledness or stability or peace, you know, peace, wholeness, joy lies. Right? So as this empty, invisible investor or life giver, you can say. Basically, whatever we charge is the experience that we get. Whatever we feed is the experience that we get. This makes me think of the term hive mind. And of course, when we quote unquote follow the hive mind of the external and conforming uncritically, right? Just being in groupthink, basically mindlessly following the external brainwashing and being part of that hive mind, you can say it's not good, right? We're giving our power away. The external hive mind is siphoning our currency. It's taking occupancy over the vessel, you can say, and the vessel, being hijacked by the external hive mind, by the external brainwashing. Now, if we direct this tendency to join a group, right, to want to feel a sense of belongingness, to want to be part of something from out there to here where it really belongs, that's the one that is of benefit to us, you can say. As they say, invest in yourself. Instead of giving this kind of accommodation away to the external whatever hive mind, to the external brainwashing, right? If we direct that from over there to here, to the quote unquote internal hive mind, right? The personal collective, then we find home, we find true home. There's the true occupancy. Embodiment, you can say, allows for the true occupancy of the whole instead of the arrogant, destructive colonizer. Or another way to put it is joining in the quote unquote, the personal hive mind gives no space, you can say, for illegal occupiers, for illegal possessors, for illegal colonizers, basically. Because the external world serves as the distraction, we can say, as the siphoner, as the hijacker, right? It's a temptation, it's a lure for you to give your power away, for you to give this authority away. And so if we join in some, let's say, collective societal brainwashing or hive mind, right? Then we have allowed ourselves or allowed this vessel to be occupied by that, let's say, toxic idea, by that disempowering, devaluing idea, let's say. You can say, rented your vessel to that quote unquote negative thought form, or to that petty tyrant, or to that insane dictator, Again, especially with cults directing this tendency to join and to be part of something to cults, right? It's allowing yourself to be a vessel, to be possessed, for that cult leader, let's say. And so you want to serve the true occupants, the original, the original hive mind, the truth of your vessel, of this avatar. You want to be in reverence of that, in respecting, in valuing of it. I know I've described it numerous times, but it's basically, it's an allowing, it's a letting. Like imagine a painting or an image that you value, that you appreciate, that you like, We hang the painting on the wall and we frame it, right? We are in allowing of it. The frame is in allowing of it, right? The frame is a hole. You can say it's a channel. It's an emptiness. right? The middle part of the frame is nothing, it's a nothingness. It's empty, it's a hole, it's a channel, quote unquote, it's a canal, right? It's the female energy, you can say. It's in reverence, it's in allowing of the whole painting, right? The frame is not stepping on the painting. It's not in the way. It's not obstructing, the middle part of the painting. It's not hindering it or oppressing it or squashing it or whatever. The frame is out of the way, it's out of the way of the painting. And so again, it is this place of being in respecting, being in valuing. Or let's say when you value someone, when you truly respect and admire someone, you're in reverence of them, right? You're not trying to squash them, possess them, step on them, being in their way, trying to oppress them, crush them, or invade or colonize them, right? You're in reverence, right? That's when you know that someone is truly valuing another, if that is their treatment. If they're trying to possess them and conquer them and occupy them and whatnot, that's the opposite, right? That's basically hate and oppression. And so that's the way you can say. If we really prefer or value true democracy, right? If we really truly honor majority rule, then we practice it here. We honor it here. We are in reverence of it here.